This conference will now be recorded.
So we're recording this, will be on YouTube later. And so they actually drew earlier who's first, second, third, fourth, fifth. We didn't assign them, they drew out of a piece of paper out of a bowl, Minnesota style, right? Everybody, no door prizes, but Minnesota style for that. So they'll come up and we'll get started here in just a moment. So after they come up here, I'll adjust the camera, make sure that they can be seen okay. And then we'll get started. So I don't remember who's number one. Dimitri, you're number one. All right, come on up. We'll adjust the camera, or get the camera taken care of, and then we'll get you started. Oh yeah, great. The mayor pointed out, if you have a phone, if you turn it on vibrate or off, that is not interrupt anyone anymore. So Dimitri, let's make sure that you're on here okay. All right. So Dimitri, start when you're ready.
All right, I'm ready.
Please go ahead.
All right. I'm Dmitry Akonitsky. Thanks for having me here. And by the way, good luck to all the candidates here. A little bit about myself. I'm Chief of Henderson. I've been in law enforcement for a little over 20 years. Prior to that, worked in Morris, Minnesota. I started out in Minnesota, worked in Morris, Minnesota, St. Louis Park. Then I went to the bulk of my career. I went to Louisiana and worked for major metropolitan police departments of New Orleans and Jefferson Parish. There, 1,600, 1,300 personnel. Was supervisor there for 6 years. Supervised, was a shift supervisor, supervising 15 people at the time, covering an area of roughly 100,000 population. Roughly 2 Mancators. I also worked as administrative sergeant there, and at the same time as commander of the district investigation unit. Have had experience, worked as a detective at both in criminal investigation bureau, special investigation bureau, worked different special assignments such as Bourbon Street Task Force, Downtown Task Force. I have ties to this community. My son goes to St. Peter Lutheran School. I guess interesting facts about me. I speak several languages. Was born in Europe and was on 4 different cop shows. And to answer the question, oh, my glasses. The question was, what would your first 3 months on the job look like? Well, I'm going to do the same thing as I did when I took over Henderson Police Department. First of all, you have to introduce yourself to the community. I had kind of meet and greet, kind of like this at our community center, where people can just come over, anybody and talk, ask questions or express their concerns. Not only introduce myself to just regular public, but get to know business community, get to know the schools here, civic associations. The first 3 months on the job should be evaluation and observation process. You're gonna find out what works, what doesn't work, why it works, why it doesn't work, what changes need to be made, if any. You don't want to jump the gun, just kind of like evaluate the police department from everything from procedures to morale to how you process evidence, where budget, where all the resources are directed and how they directed. And of course, build working relationship with the city administration, with heads of other departments, surrounding jurisdiction, city attorney's office. It's pretty much, it's a collaborative effort. So you have to, law enforcement in general, if you want to be successful, it's a collaborative effort. So you have to build relationship with all the other organizations and tap into their resources. Obviously, I would make a point to kind of get to know people that I work with that work for me. So I would not only have department meetings and kind of define what direction the department is going to be going, but also get to know everybody on a personal level and find out what if there is any issues within the department. I would like to find out what the aspirations of the department is, the police officers, individual police officers, what they're looking for in their careers, and define clear kind of expectations. But as I said, the most important part of starting working for a new department is to evaluate and kind of observe what's going on in the community, what the community needs are, and you don't want to jump the gun and make changes that later on you have to undo. I pretty much understand what department should be like in order to provide 1 minute left quality of service to the community. So yeah, that's basically it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Dimitri. All right, who do we have number 2? Keith, how are you doing?
I'm well, Todd, thank you.
All right, we'll make sure we get the camera adjusted here. I adjusted originally for my height, and you can see. All right, Keith, so you're up.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Keith Ruffing. I grew up in Gaylord, Minnesota, which is a town about 20 miles northwest of here, and graduated from Sibley East High School. I then attended Minnesota State University, Mankato, and graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in law enforcement in 1998. In 1999, I moved to the city of St. Peter, not having a job here, but this was a place I wanted to live. 6 months after moving here, I was hired as a police officer and have been proud to serve the community here for nearly 22 years. My wife, Deanna, and I have 4 children. The youngest is 11 and the oldest 21. All 4 are attending or have graduated from St. Peter School District. During my time of service to the city, I have taken on many different tasks and assignments. I served for 10 years as the canine handler. I've been fortunate to manage most of the technology implementation over the years, such as our transitions to electronic citations and our new reporting system, our move to a statewide emergency communication system, and our upgrade and continued maintenance of our squad car video system, as well as purchasing and maintaining most of the equipment that's in our squad cars. I currently represent our city on several regional and statewide boards and work groups. I've been a field training officer for the department for about 7 years. This role has been the most fulfilling, as I am able to teach and guide our new officers as they learn the job and the responsibilities associated with it. If provided the opportunity to lead the St. Peter Police Department as your chief of police, I know that my first several months in the position will be extremely busy. I will need to expand my knowledge of the administrative side of the job to ensure that we are operating within established guidelines. In addition, I will need to delegate individuals to take on some of my current responsibilities within the department, to the South Central region, as well as several state level work groups, excuse me. I view one of the most important first tasks as taking care of the people in the department. We will need to assure that our staffing is full as soon as possible. Most people don't realize that it can take at least 3 months just to get a patrol officer on the road for their first day, and another 3 months to train them so they can work on the road independently. We have been working with staff levels that are a little lower than normal for quite some time. Officers have been working extra shifts, which means more time away from their families and more time away from their hobbies and activities. Officers need to be able to have time off to recharge and return ready for service. I want to ensure that our staff, whether they are patrol officers, detectives, or dispatchers, are mentally well. My leadership style is different than our former administration, and I bring new ideas and know that I will do many things differently than they have been done in the past. I know that to have positive, meaningful change, it will take time and input from the stakeholders involved. The first group that I will engage with will be those that go out into the community and are the face of our agency, the staff of the St. Peter Police Department. I plan on conducting a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths. What are we doing well? What are the characteristics of our agency that give us an advantage over others? Weaknesses, what are we not doing so well? What are the characteristics of our agency that give us a disadvantage over others? Opportunities, what are some of the things that we should be taking advantage of? What should or could we be doing? And threats. What are the elements in our environment that could inhibit our efforts, and what potential barriers exist? The analysis will ask those questions in the following areas: policy and procedure, equipment and facilities, technology, supervision and staffing, leadership and interagency cooperation, organizational culture and climate. I will ask each member of our agency to complete a questionnaire and schedule one-on-one meetings to talk about their thoughts and ideas. I feel that it is imperative to know the thoughts and ideas of the individuals carrying out the change that is implemented. It provides them ownership and purpose and will lead our department to continued success. Using the information gathered from the staff, I will begin to chart our course of positive and meaningful change. With our goals clearly defined, we will explore ways to reconnect with the community. The past year has been a difficult one to stay connected with those we serve. Many of our community programs were modified to limit contact or were outright canceled. Thankfully, things are beginning to resume. In addition to events such as Casting with a Cop, Shop with a Hero, and our youth recreational vehicle safety courses, we will be out in the community even more than before. As the leader of the department, I look to engage the community in more ways than we currently do. I envision the Night to Unite on August 5th as truly being a night that all of the people in our town can connect, learn about each other, and make our community a greater and safer place. I plan to enhance our social media presence to provide more useful information. This may include a virtual ride-along via Twitter or opportunities to directly engage our followers by providing a forum to ask law enforcement related questions. I look forward to community conversations to hear what is important to you. These conversations may take place in the formal structure that is being developed by our city administration. They may happen at community events, or they may even happen while I'm just walking down the street. Our community as a whole can create meaningful and positive change. My goal is to be a visible and approachable chief of police, both within the agency as well as the public, and to lead a department that ensures public safety as well as providing exceptional service. I want to thank each and every one of you that has taken time to meet with us. If you would like to talk more about anything that I touched on, I welcome the chance to carry on the conversation. Thank you for the opportunity to provide continued service to the St. Peter community.
All right, Keith, thank you. Who's up next?
Hi.
All right, welcome. All right. Paul, whenever you're ready.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself to you. And also congratulations to everybody that's here today, and I wish you the best. My name is Paul Hagan, and my wife Corinne and I moved to this community in 1992. For the past 29 years, I have had the honor to serve as a police officer for the city of St. Peter. During this time, we have raised 4 children, Roman, Lily, Isaac, and Sherman. And like Keith's children, they've all gone through school here in the school district of St. Peter. From an educational standpoint, I came to this community with a bachelor's degree in business administration, a real estate license, and certifications in law enforcement, and able to be a police officer. Since being in this community, I've gone back to school. I've attained a master's degree in public administration, and I've also had the opportunity to attend the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. In addition to my duties as a police officer, for 25 years or so, I've been a member of our multi-jurisdictional tactical team. 16 of those years I've spent as a team leader, supervising all the officers and working with 7 different agency heads. For the past 20 years, I've had the opportunity to be a law enforcement instructor at 3 different colleges. I've taught at South Central College, I've taught at Mankato State, and I've also taught for Rasmussen College. For 15 years currently, I've been this police liaison officer for our reserve program, being that connection between them and the police department, doing training and education for them. For the past 7 years, I've been the police patrol sergeant and second in command to former Chief Matt Peters. And currently, I'm the interim police chief until this process is through and we have a new person that will take that role. When I do have free time, I enjoy being outside. I enjoy spending time with my family. We like to bike, hike, fish, garden, and do most things outside. I am also very active in my church, and I have a strong faith belief, and I'm currently the chairman of the board of elders at my church. I, like Keith, envision my first months as chief of police as being very busy. I want to get out and I want to meet with the different leaders in the community, our spiritual leaders, our community leaders, our professional leaders, business leaders, and talk with them and see what kind of problems they're facing, and to really set a good baseline for how we can move forward and develop our community to make our relationships stronger. The police department, I would like to say, really my first goal would be to reassure the citizens of this town that you are not going to receive anything less than the highest quality service that we can provide, because that's what you deserve. Honor, integrity, respect, courage, compassion, being that party willing to listen are the attributes that I would hope all of our officers would like to present to the community so we can work better with you. We're coming to the close of a fiscal year here soon at the end of June, so I know I'll be busy working on a budget if that's the task I'm given. I want to meet with our office supervisor and our communications people to see what their needs are, to make sure they have all the resources and tools they have to get their job done. I will need to meet with our city administration, our department heads, to figure out the processes we need to go through to go forward and keep all of our inner working parts of our community going strong within the city. I will need to meet with our area law enforcement directors so we can jointly work on collaborative projects to make sure things run smoothly and we can give them assistance when we need to. And then I obviously will meet with all of our police officers. They are the backbone of the organization, as they are the front line going out and meeting with all the members of the community. And I want these individuals to know how lucky and how blessed they are to be able to work in a community that truly supports their police department. Not all communities can share that same situation these times of trouble around the country. I want our office to be forthright, honest, and transparent. If there are things that we can release to the public, we will release those things to the public. And due to privacy concerns and confidentiality, we do deal with information that we cannot release, and we're restricted by laws and regulations. And I also want the public to understand that the police department isn't trying to hide things, or just things that we cannot release under law. Our job is to serve and protect all the people in this community to the best of our ability. My first day on the job was May 4th, 1992, and it was a day I'll never forget. The first call I went to assist on, a young boy was walking to school. He was struck by a car and he died. And that had a very impactful moment upon my life. It really made me look and say, this is real. This is a real community. These are real things, and tragedies happen. It also made me look at the mission of our agency over the years and how strong our office has gone out and done school patrols in the morning and in the afternoons and tried to make a visible presence. I think we need to make even a stronger visible presence, just like Keith said. We need to get out in the community. We need people to know that we are here to serve them or work with them. Unfortunately, we can't prevent all these tragedies from happening, but I will promise this, that we will do the very best we can with the resources that we have available. Thank you so much for this opportunity to introduce myself.
All right, who we have next? Number 4. All right. All right, Matt, whenever you're ready.
Finally, what an excellent time to all be together here today. We are in a room and we are without masks, and it's very great to see all of you here today. And for those of the people that are watching out in the media world, my name is Matt Groko. I'm currently a detective at the St. Peter Police Department. A little bit about me is I was born in Mankato and raised my entire life here in St. Peter. So I've been a lifelong resident, and I'm going to age myself right now of 49 years. I love this community and I love the people in this community, more importantly. So again, I graduated from St. Peter High School, and then I went to Mankato State University, where I got a Bachelor of Science degree. During that time, while I was in Mankato, and even while I was in high school, I began my career at the St. Peter Police Department. I was on the Explorer program. We don't really have many of those programs anymore, but that was when I was about 17 years old. So from there, I transitioned into the police reserves. And in 1991, I was working on the communication part at the police department and for the community service officer. And so that was sort of transitioning through my time at MSU, when I graduated and became a police officer in 1995. I'm proud to say that I've raised 2 sons in St. Peter who graduated from St. Peter and traveled on to college. I'm lucky today to have my fiance Ann here. And together we have 8 children. So we are very active in the community here and also in Cleveland. And when I became a police officer, I worked as a patrol officer, of course, but after about 2 years, I began to get an interest in narcotic investigations. And as a result of that, Chief Peters at the time got us involved in the Minnesota River Valley Drug Task Force. And so I served in an undercover capacity for about 9 years. And during that time, and part of that time, I was the commander of that unit, roughly about 4 to 5 agents. So that was an exciting and a challenging time for my career. And roughly into that 9th year, Chief Peters had an opening in the detective division. And so I was promoted into that position as a detective, and I'm currently in that position now at the police department. And, you know, throughout that time and making the connections that I had we have representatives here from CADA, from my connections with Gustavus Adolphus College and being a part of their sexual assault response team, have just clearly been rewarding. I think one of the parts when I came back into the detectives that really changed my outlook somewhat on addiction. That has been a big part of the last 12 years of my career. And I serve as a staff member and also as a compliance agent for the Nicollet and Brown County Treatment Court program. And really what that entails is supervision over the participants that are in that program. But what I realized through that is how addiction is impacting mental health today, and how important it is to address those components of mental health and how much that impacts calls for service that we have here in the community. And part of the other challenge is how do we get people services? That's one of the things that really needs to happen and really needs to be held accountable from the law enforcement standpoint, and right down to the mental health part of things. My first 90 days and looking at what's going to be transpiring, reflecting what some of the comments made, I think it's going to be critically important to start making those connections. Again, I've had sort of that luxury in the position that I am, the connections that I have strong with Gustavus, being their liaison officer there for felony level investigations. I'm currently the liaison for the St. Peter Regional Treatment Center for felony level investigations, and certainly there's officers that assist in those type of investigations as well. And during that 90 days, I know that there's a lot happening, and Keith Ruffing pointed out some things, and one of the big events, and that we're so excited to have in St. Peter, and finally we are going to have that, is the 4th of July celebration. I know Sergeant Hagan has a lot to do with the planning of that event, but we get 10,000 people in this community, and that's a time for us to show off this community. And hopefully that can in fact impact or influence people to come and join our community. That's what all of this is about. I know that City Administrator Prafke had sent out a community connection plan, and I have had an opportunity to look over that and some of the documents that he has presented to Mayor Chuck Zeman, who is present here today, and really what that looks like, and getting our organization, city services included, out to those demographics and those potentially underserved communities to let them know what this city has to offer. It is a tremendous community. And just a short example of that, we've had an active investigation recently, and I really like to think that our community supports our police department. I see it in so many different ways, but getting back to this quick example, we had an individual stealing some catalytic converters on a vehicle, and we put that out on Facebook, and the responses that we got with the pictures from that were overwhelming and amazing. So again, I am here to serve the city of St. Peter and its community. Meeting with the officers is going to be important. How can we strengthen our department? How can we deliver our services in a more potentially better way than what we have been doing? So again, I'm so happy to be here. I'm looking forward to the next day and a half, and please, everyone here is welcome to meet with me after the presentation. But again, thank you for coming, and thank you, St. Peter.
Before you can go, adjust the camera. I gotta start with it.
I was about to write, so that I was a paratrooper and I used to be.
All right, Victor, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. My wife and I are very excited about it. And it's nice to see the community come out and get involved and be interested in this process that's going to be shaping the future of their police department. Anyway, as I mentioned, I'm Victor Siebenek. I'll get with the personal stuff first. I'm a husband and a father. In fact, my beautiful wife, Angela's joined me here today. She's a Minnesota native. We have friends and family from Prior Lake, Jordan, Wilmer, and my father-in-law is from Hutchinson, and her great-grandfather was the sheriff of McLeod County back in the 30s. Anyway, I'm the oldest of 9 children. I was born in the Midwest. My parents moved us to a small farm in Oostburg, Wisconsin. Don't hold that against me. And since then, we've moved around quite a bit. My father was in the military, so I'm an Army brat. So I've lived quite a few places, but mostly in the Midwest. I graduated from high school from Illinois, and then I myself joined the Army, as I mentioned earlier. I was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division and was promoted to sergeant, so I had the opportunity to lead troops for about 2.5 years in the military. And I loved it. So my intention was to get out, go to school, and come back in as a commissioned officer. Well, I did get out. I got an honorable discharge and moved to South Carolina, and I was going to pursue my education. But life threw a little wrench at me. A major hurricane made landfall in Charleston, South Carolina, took my residence, my place of employment, and left me homeless for about 5 months. I lived in a suburban for about 5 months before my dad talked some sense into me to move out to Utah and start school there, which I did. I obtained my bachelor's degree from the University of Utah, and instead of going back into the Army, I opted to go into law enforcement. It caught my eye, it was extremely intriguing, and that's what I did. I've been in law enforcement for about I'm working on my 25th year now. And in that time, I've had opportunities and great assignments that's enabled me to touch, to participate, to lead, and to improve every aspect of policing. I started out my career as a correctional officer. I worked in the county jail and later transitioned out into the road. And I was a patrol deputy. I switched agencies due to pending layoffs. No one wants to lose their job. So I moved over to the Salt Lake City Police Department, where I've been for almost 20 years. I've been, as I mentioned, I've been assigned to patrol, motors, undercover narcotics officer, and I was a homicide investigator for about 4 years, investigating some high-profile, high community interest cases. I promoted to sergeant, and of course, started back in patrol as leading a patrol team of about 15 officers. I reinstituted a narcotics squad, introduced new policies, new procedures, selected personnel, and trained them up, introduced the Undercover Academy to the Salt Lake City Police Department, which is now the benchmark for training for undercover officers in the entire valley, and it's still going right now. As a lieutenant, I was a watch commander. I was responsible for up to 9 sergeants and a lot of ground troops officers, and was responsible for the day-to-day operations of that patrol division. I was geographically responsible for everything that happened. I've responded to and handled many critical incidents, officer-involved critical incidents, drive-by shootings, active shooters, an active mobile shooter. All of those I've handled while I was a watch commander as a lieutenant. I've also had the officer wellness program and community outreach programs. I was also responsible for those as a lieutenant. Currently, I am a captain with the Salt Lake City Police Department. I am the division commander for an investigations division. It consists of about 170 allocated personnel, 50 of whom are professional staff members, and the remainder are sworn detectives, sergeants. I currently supervise 5 lieutenants, 16 sergeants, 2 directors, and several supervisors, many of whom are non-sworn. So as you can see, like I said, I had the opportunity to touch almost every aspect of policing, and it's been a great career, and I've continued to improve my understanding of law enforcement and best practices. I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Utah. I have obtained a master's degree from Arizona State University in law enforcement and a graduate level certificate in law enforcement administration. I've attended Northwestern University's School of Police Staff and Command College, which is an equivalent to the National Academy, FBI National Academy. It's just a different organization. And in each of those transitions, each of those promotions, even within the organization as well as external, you always have to go through the same kind of process, right? You don't want to be that bull in the china shop. Critical issues notwithstanding, the initial focus for the first 30 days is going to be relationship building, observing, and learning. Okay. Observing and learning, I'm going to take a new critical eye to the policies and procedures and see how that matches up and comports with the departmental training. I'm going to take a look at the culture and the practices of the police department, how officers in the department interact with the customers, our community members. While doing so, it's important to understand and respect the current culture, and as well as lean heavily on those with institutional knowledge. I'm going to take a look at the crime trends and community issues. It's how the department personnel interact with the community. I'm going to look at the emergency action plans, the incident action plans for the community for incidents such as natural disasters and large-scale events. I'm going to be looking at the mission, vision, and goals of the department and see where. Thank you. I'm going to move on to relationships. I've just been told I have 1 minute. I do kind of get long-winded. Relationships are huge, and those relationships those relationships aren't just within the personnel within the department. They're also within the community, faith leaders, city elected officials, my boss, who would be the city manager, and come up with a shared vision and develop a strategic plan going forward in that vision. I'm going to spend a lot of time with external partners, non-governmental organizations, faith community, and various aspects of the community. Going on 60 days, we're going to continue building and reinforcing those relationships, and I will pick up my pace speaking now. Evaluate department resources, projects, MOUs, etc. Audit the operating budget. Make sure that we're fiscally responsible and using taxpayer money the way we should be. At 60 days, I'm going to start having enough information to develop a SWOT analysis, right? Which we spoke about earlier: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And from there, we can begin to look at a strategic vision, a 5-year strategic plan, and a crime reduction plan. Obviously, I just want to talk a little bit about those external partners and explore opportunities to collaborate and continue collaboration with non-governmental organizations, victim advocate groups, other law enforcement agencies and entities around the area. With that, I think my time is up because City Administrator Prafke stood up and is coming right for me. So thank you again for this opportunity and have a good day.
Thank you, Victor. I promise that if anyone has long on so the next phase of this is that we have some questions, and I want to emphasize again that we had an opportunity for people to submit questions in advance. So 1 or 2 of those might show up within this group. Some are moving on to part of the discussion and question series that the next interview team and the City Council and the Civil Service Commission will use. So if you submitted a question and you don't see it here, we tried to include it, and frankly, most of the questions fell into about 3 to 4 different categories. So hopefully we're hitting the spirit of what you're looking for, even if the wording might be just a little bit different. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we drew lots essentially for who would answer first, second, who would go first, second, third, fourth, and so we'll continue in that same process as we go forward. The folks here have been instructed that these are supposed to be pretty short answers, so they get about a minute or so to answer. And before we get started, I'm gonna run back and get my card, and we'll time as close as we can. But wanted to make you aware of what the process was for that. I don't know if anybody has questions about process before we get going. Then after this, with the panel discussion, and they'll sit right here and we'll test their sharing skills. We have 3 microphones for 5 people. So we'll test their sharing skills.
I guess this is ours.
Yeah, so I think you're on. And so at the end of this, then we'll have some time left to bump elbows and visit person to person if you want to take that opportunity. So I don't forget to say this, over by Barb, we have some forms that you could fill out, some feedback forms if you want to do that. But certainly today, if you want to send Barbara and I your email, we'll make sure that that continues to flow through the process. But want to make sure that you know how your important feedback can be provided. Any questions before we get started about the process? All right. God, what a great group today. Thank you. Okay, so the first question, I can't remember. Dimitri, I think you were number 1.
I think so.
Yeah, number 1. And so we'll start with Dimitri. So the first question is, again, with the short answer, why did you apply for the position of police chief here in St. Peter?
That's a very good question. I'm pretty much local. Henderson is only 10 minutes away from here. My son goes to St. Peter School. It's a beautiful town. It's got a lot of history. It's got a lot of potential. It's a great community. I can't wait until they finish building McDonald's again, because I have to drive to Jordan now for Happy Meals. But I feel that I have a lot to offer. to the community, as use all of my experience with different police departments, major metropolitan agencies, and local departments. Of course, I'm aware of regional issues, what the issues are here for the challenges for the police department. But overall, it's a great city. That's what it is. Well, that's what it comes down to, and I would be glad to serve this community as a police chief.
Dimitri, thank you. Keith, if I remember right, you're up next. Same question. Why did you apply for the position of police chief here in St. Peter?
Thank you, Todd. Can everybody hear me all right? No? Let's go. I don't want to unplug us here. How about now? All right. The reason I applied for this, the position for chief of police is pretty simple. I love this town. I love this job. This is the greatest job in the world. For me, it's a natural step. It's the next part of my career. I have, I'm roughly 2/3 of the way done with where I view my career, and it would be great to serve the city as the lead of the police department for my last 10 or so years. I feel that I can bring a lot of things to the table, a different perspective, some opportunities for some change, and I'm very excited about that. So that is my reason for applying for this job. Thank you.
Keith, thank you. Paul, you're up next. Same question. If you need me to repeat it, I sure can, but all right.
No, I think we're good. For me, it's pretty simple too. I have always admired and I've always wanted to be the chief of police. And all of the schooling and all of the training and all the different things that I have done have been in preparation for this moment. And I am here with the basic tenets of law enforcement to serve and protect. And I want to make sure that our officers give you that respect that you deserve as the public. And I just believe I have the skills with all the training. My file at the police department, like these other gentlemen that work with me, is probably an inch or more thick. And I have been wonderfully awarded opportunities by the city, and I want to return that to them by serving the best I can. Thank you.
All right. Matt, you're up next.
I could probably use just one word, and that would be dream. It has been my dream to be the police chief. I had that desire early on in my career. I've tried to do everything that I can. Certainly there could have been more things to do, but I think just the connection that I have with the community is going to make us a stronger department, and more importantly, I think a stronger community. And so I've been waiting for this opportunity for many years. I'm excited for it and this process. And so, yeah, just one word, it would be my dream. It's the next step for my career. And I'm very thankful again for this opportunity.
Victor, you're up.
Okay. So, yes, why St. Peter? Well, I've been preparing myself, why Chief of Police of St. Peter? Well, I've been preparing myself for my entire career, my entire life, in increasing levels of leadership and professionalism. I've prepared myself academically and with a width and breadth of policing experience. But why Minnesota? Why St. Peter? Well, my wife's from here. We got a lot of family and a lot of friends that live here. In fact, I've even passed reciprocity for the state of Minnesota for peace officer certification. And we talked a lot about where that would be in Minnesota, and St. Peter keeps coming up. A lot of our friends and family, hey, St. Peter's awesome. And that was confirmed by a lot of the people we met last night out at dinner. St. Peter's is this, St. Peter is that. It's the biggest small town in America, and they just are very proud to be here. And that's an exciting prospect for me.
Thank you. Next question that we have, and again, we'll continue in the same order. They drew numbers for this. So this is a multi-part question. So if you need help again with the question, let me know. So the question is, the natures of policing has changed substantially over the last decade. Share with us what you think the biggest change has been and why, and how does that impact what you're going to do as police chief in St. Peter?
Well, the biggest change right now, obviously, in the light of the recent events, community is changing, policing is changing as we speak. The police departments have to adapt to the new standards in how we police. How do we deal with those challenges? First, it's going to be training. A lot of it has to do with training. We have to make sure that our police officers receive all the training necessary and improve relationship with the community. Go out there, make connections with the community, address all the issues, no matter how big or small they are, and gain that confidence within the community for the police department. So it's kind of like a combination of training, professionalism, and also establishing good relationship with the community.
Thank you, Dimitri. Keith, you're up next. Again, biggest challenges over the next decade and how those or the last decade and how those challenges impact what you might do as a police chief.
All right. Thank you, Todd. Law enforcement has been an ever-changing process since the day I started this job. It's never ending. Education is always ongoing. We learn something new every day. In the last 10 years, well, let me back off just a little bit there. In the last 10 years, the biggest change is it's twofold. Technology has made things more available to everyone. Everyone is always on camera, even if you think you're not. Everyone's always being recorded, even when you think you're not. It doesn't cause me concern. It just is able to confirm what I've always been, fair to people. I'm not afraid of being caught on camera. I'm not afraid of technology. It allows us to get more information out to anyone in a very quick way. Social media, if you use it right, is the best thing for us in public safety.
Keith, thank you very much. Paul, you're up next. The same question.
I would agree with Keith. I think the technology is a big issue. The transparency of the department, it holds us more accountable to things that we do and how we act and how we say. I personally think probably one of the biggest changes as of recent is going to revolve around our use of force and how officers interact with the public. And legislation has changed specifically because of that, putting new requirements on officers. Officers should not be afraid to use the authority they have, but they need to do that job well trained. And training is a big issue. We need to keep that up. Our agency has always had a long-standing area of keeping training a priority. When we've had other budget cuts, we have always kept our training budget high because we want the best possible officers out there that are able to serve you and serve you well. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Matt, I believe you're next.
We all know some of the difficulties recently and within the last 10 years in how law enforcement is changing. I think there's a few words about integrity, honesty, and then the one critical word for me is humility. If there is a mistake that is made, you have to own up to that mistake. I think we need to be transparent with the public. We need to know that their voice is going to be heard. You know, my door will always be open for anyone that has questions, concerns, or complaints. But again, I think what we need to do is what I was involved in and Sergeant Hagan was involved in back in 1997 and 1998, and that was community-orientated policing. We need to reconnect with our community. We need to know that we're here to listen and try to understand, but more importantly, how can we deliver our services as a city as a whole to them? We need to understand if there's problems and how can we resolve them. If we need to have liaison to certain groups, that's what we need to do. And maybe that's the needed change we have to have. Thank you.
All right.
Victor, you're up.
Yes, that's true. The nature of policing has changed considerably over the last decade, and I would agree with some of the points that were brought up at this table here just a few minutes ago, technology being the biggest one, how fast information gets out or misinformation gets out. But I think this past year has provided even more challenges to law enforcement and at a much quicker pace. And I think it does come down to training, but I also think it comes down largely to communication and collaboration and understanding what it is our customers, the community, and those various community subgroups actually need and expect. Because unmet expectations lead to disappointment and frustration. So we need to understand what those realistic expectations are and educate and understand each other about those perspectives and comes down to relationships.
All right, Victor, thank you. The last question that we have is really based on your answers. So all of you gave an answer to the last question. You talked about a number of different things, and I wrote many of them down here. But what I'm wondering is that if you can pick one or two themes from your last answer, change was one that all of you talked about, and talk how, again, you might facilitate change, if that's your topic, in your new role as the police chief. If you've identified a need, what do you do going forward as the police chief? Dimitri, you're up first.
Well, again, as far as change, there's going to be a period of evaluation and observation and feedback from the community. I would see what kind of issues and main concerns are in the community. And then obviously, we'll proceed accordingly and make adjustment or changes that need to be made. What kind of crime fighting strategies I used over here, if any, how do we conduct investigations here, how we process evidence, what kind of equipment we have, how our relationship with the community. So it all depends, upon the period of evaluation and just, looking at all these things. Just like in my community, my mission statement is to keep Henderson a safe place to live, raise a family, work, and visit. And it's going to be the same, philosophy if I'm chosen to be the chief of police here. We want our people to feel safe. If they forget to lock their car, they don't have to worry about somebody breaking in. They would like to have their kids ride bicycle around town and not worry about any type of, drug houses being around and things like that. Everybody wants their community to be safe. And as far as changes, I just have to see what kind of modern crime fighting strategies we could use here, and what are the main concerns are, which, I'm pretty much familiar with this region and what the main problems are, and I just don't know to what extent it is in relation to this community, and that's something that I'll have to find out if I become chief.
Keith, you identified some challenges in the last question. Why don't you address how you might impact those for our community as chief?
Sure. I think in my opening presentation, I spoke quite a bit about change and how we make change. In order to make positive and meaningful change, we have to engage everyone that is involved, all the stakeholders involved, the community, the different groups in town, whether it's faith or the educational system or any social type groups that have a stake in this community. If we want to make change, we have to engage them. And engagement and positive change will take some time. It's not something that we can do at a snap of a finger. For me, the easiest way to do that is through transparency, which is made very possible with the technology that we have at our disposal these days. Social media, in our records system, I can track anything. I can track anything that we need to. I can use our social media and our website to put information out to the public in almost real time as we need to. So those are part of my processes for change: engagement, transparency, and putting the information out there so you don't have to hunt for it.
Thanks, Keith. Paul, I think you're up next.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off of some of the other things people have said already. Our agency at full staff is 15 officers, and 15 officers for a community around 12,000. We cannot affect change by saying this is how it's going to be done and make that happen. We have approximately 20 people in this room today, and it looks like there's about 24 cameras of people watching online, and hopefully there's multiple people sitting at the same time and watching this event. And we need that engagement with everybody. Everybody has a stake in this effective change. It's not an overnight thing. It's not a rapid thing. It's a slow process of us getting to know each other, learning about cultural differences, and really working to strive to make our community better. You are here today, and these people are watching today because they have a strong concern about what happens in this community. And I would like to see more people here, but I understand with busy schedules, that's not always the case. So my thought and my purpose will be to engage the community to the best of our ability, work with them, listen to them, and then do the best we can to serve that need. Thank you.
All right. Matt, you're up.
Again, going sort of last in this process, there's a lot of things that come to mind, and then many of those are stated. But again, just referring back to some of the comments that I made about the connection to the community and how we strengthen those. I think being able to identify people in areas that feel that they are underserved is going to be critical. We have to have a liaison to different groups, and groups don't necessarily have to be identified as diversity, but groups could be within Gustavus. Groups can be within our educational system. But again, we just simply have to be available to hear their voices. And again, what Paul had said about transparency, and Keith as well, but we need to be transparent. I think that's the only way we strengthen our position here as a police department. People have to have faith in what we're doing, and certainly trust in what we're doing. So keeping those lines of communication open at all times is going to be critical. We talk about what Administrator Prafke had about the community connections. What a wonderful way to examine an implementation of a process that needs to happen. So again, just being willing to listen. I think that's the biggest part of trying to hear what the problems and concerns are. Thank you.
Yeah, so I really like, I think these gentlemen have all brought up really, really great points, and I agree with them on each of their points, particularly with, community engagement. And I think it's really important to foster and build those relationships with all aspects of the entire community as a whole, because relationships lead to trust. Trust leads to collaboration and working together for a common goal of solving the community's issues and crime problems that the police can handle. So police officers are oftentimes the only interaction that citizens or community members have with their government, right? And it's imperative that we feel the best trained, most compassionate, most understanding officers that are available, while holding ourselves accountable to the community. And I talked a little bit earlier about unrealistic expectations, and I think those relationships, right? We got to be trustworthy. Building those relationships, I think we can get over that hump of the communication gap. And I think I will yield the microphone.
All right, thank you very much. So let's give everybody a hand for their answers. All right, so the next part of the process is kind of that meet and greet. It's not very often that the city buys you something, but we got coffee and cookies. And so we want to make sure that you make yourself available, and the candidates are instructed to mingle with you and visit with you, and you can ask them a question or greet them or whatever you want to do. They're not really supposed to shake hands under the CDC rules, so giving the elbow is okay in this instance. And so they've been all told about that. And so I'd really encourage you to hang around for a little bit. We have about 30 minutes, give or take a little bit. And so we'd encourage you to mingle, visit with them separately, come up and have a coffee and a cookie, and they'll kind of spread out around the room so you have a chance to catch all of them if you want. But give them a minute to grab a cup of coffee if they want, and me a minute or two to move some of the cords out of the way so you can get up here. And again, thank you for being here. And I'll kind of give you the signal when it's time to kind of wrap up and they've got to move on to their next event. So let's give all of them a hand. Thank them for being here. Thank you.